I'm back! And I came back with something that's a little bit more mainstream. Oh, would you look at that? While Elusive Samurai isn't one of my top 10 animes of all time, I still genuinely enjoy the series, mostly for its art. However, like the title says, I do have some nitpicks, and one major issue with the series. Now for context, I'm mostly going to be talking about the anime here, as I have not read the manga, so for all I know, this problem could be fixed in the manga later on. But first, a brief synopsis. Elusive Samurai is about an heir to the Hojo clan named Tokiyuki, known for his insane agility. However, after the massacre of his entire clan by a traitor, he now needs to rebuild his clan from the ground up with very limited resources. Now, I like this premise. I have in fact played multiple games where the whole point is to build things up from scratch. However, the one problem that I do have with this series is its supernatural elements. What do I mean by that? Well, also introduced in the first episode of the series is Yorishige, a Shinto priest that can also see the future, alongside his assistant. He's portrayed as eccentric and doesn't know how to read the room. And yeah, one of his major problems is that his humor usually falls flat. Now granted, I have heard the argument that his humor is supposed to be awful, because spoiler alert for the anime, it turns out that he's actually a god. And then the series also decides to introduce spirit animals? I mean, they're not exactly yokai, but it's still odd nonetheless. And then for the rest of the anime, they're never brought up again. I have many problems with how this is introduced. One, the fact that it's not brought up again. When you introduce something into your story, whether it be a plot device or a character or a power, you gotta do something with it. It's now planted in viewers' minds, and it's not something that's poorly introduced either. There are 2 scenes dedicated to telling us this information. Another thing that the series tells us is that some days, Yorishige just can't see the future for some reason. This is technically explained by saying that he needs more spiritual power, which is from spiritual pawns, but that's all the spirit animals are actually good for. But what does him being a god have to do with the fact that, oh yeah, sometimes he can't see the future? Plus, with plot devices like this, you gotta ask yourself, if taken out, would the media really change? What if Yorishige was just a normal priest that just had really good perception, and on some days he just feels unlucky or just doesn't have the motivation? Again, I'm not a writer, so I don't know how to supplement godhood, but would Yorishige being a god realistically change anything? And 2, it just doesn't fit with the story's setting. Elusive Samurai's setting goes for the Kenshin kind of setting. What I mean is, both of them take place in a real time and are somewhat grounded in reality. However, there are some moves that could be impossible for a normal, average human to perform, but that's fine. It's supposed to be semi-realistic. It doesn't bend your suspension of disbelief, because you can somewhat visualize something similar happening in real life. And the supernatural and Yorishige being a god thing clashes with that realism and suspension of disbelief. And yeah, that's really the only problem I have with Elusive Samurai. It mostly just has to do with Yorishige, because I don't like him. And the whole supernatural gods existing thing just doesn't clash that well with its setting. This reveal could have worked if Elusive Samurai introduced these concepts prior, but then you'd have a completely different anime. If you want other reviews of Elusive Samurai, there's already people talking about it, but you should go watch it if you haven't already. Despite my one major issue with this anime, I still really like it, like I said in the beginning. And I do hope that this anime does get better over time, as well as the manga. Now, if any of you watching this has read the manga, tell me about it. What happens? Does this problem get resolved? Does Yorishige get better? I really want to know. But I think that's going to be it for this video. It ended up shorter than I wanted it to be, but hey, I guess this problem didn't take too much time to talk about. Okay, bye. Maybe next time I'll get onto a pump for you.